Getting something done is better than nothing at all. I'm Justin Hitt with Ad Briefing's Copywriting Tips. When you're managing your own newsletter and you're putting together resources for your clients, you know, it's sometimes you can get into the content creation game rather than the customer creation game. Now, this is important. I've set up an automation for sending out basic alerts. So let me talk about this. So the podcasts that I produce, I tend to produce podcasts pretty consistently, maybe 2 or 3 a day for, then a couple days in between. But I don't produce them on a schedule because most of my time is doing actual billable work. So I might get 15 minutes. I'm stuck someplace. Actually, I'm waiting for something on the computer to finish. The computer's all tied up. So I'm doing 15 minutes. Quick podcast, deliver something valuable to subscribers. So your copywriters, business development professionals, and marketers who want to increase their book of business and grow their overall copywriting business. If you're a freelance copywriter, maybe you want to have a small agency. Maybe you want to be a freelance copywriter with a more efficient schedule so that you have regular income. It's very specific. And so I need to deliver to you something valuable. So what I find out, though, is that I can have this conversation. I can get off the call with a client and have a conversation, get it down in a podcast, follow a formula. We talked about that in previous episodes, and then deliver an offer. So the offer is for you to raise your hand. Because if I just create content, it's fine if I'm on the receiving end being paid to create content. But when you're creating content for yourself, it's different. So I know you preach to your clients that content is king, but content cannot be king to you. Getting customers has to be king. Otherwise, you'll go broke. Now, you can always find more customers, but if you have customers with no money, it doesn't serve you any. I don't know if you're understanding that juxtaposition, but the truth about the copywriting business is that we preach stuff that pays copywriters rather than gets customers for clients. Now, I don't do that. I tell you the whole thing. I'm very transparent. And I'm telling you right now that this podcast takes away from billable hours. I have a queue in place. I have enough contracts and projects. I'm not saying this to brag. I'm just saying that 80 hours of my week, I would rather spend 40 to 50 serving clients billable and then get enough cash flow to hire staff to do everything else. But one thing I can't do is hire someone to be me. You can't hire someone to be you, the copywriter who specializes in a specific industry, the business development professional who's developed relationships in a marketplace that can make things happen. You can't be everything to everybody, so let's be something specific. Now, the first thing that we're talking about here is focusing on creating leads rather than creating content. Okay, so if all you're able to do is produce content like a podcast, you've got limited time, you've got limited resources, you're stressed out because there's already so many other things to do, and all you can do is create a quick little excerpt of content. So you record the content, and then you have somebody transcribe it, and then they make articles out of it, and then ultimately, that's what you got. At least the content needs to generate a lead. At least the content needs to generate a lead. I said that twice because even if you're just staying connected with prospects or you're staying connected with customers, you want them to raise their hand to get in line so that you have a funnel or a queue of new assignments coming to you. And then eventually you can get into the place where you stop trading hours for dollars and you can start lining up higher quality assignments. You can start lining up consulting activities. You can start lining up recurring work that you can backfill with a team. So what I'm describing here is I went to my podcast library for my Inside Strategic Relations newsletter. I went to Aweber. It doesn't matter what tool you're using, but I use the RSS feed off of the podcast library. Now, our RSS feed is something that's automatically created. You need to figure out that when you create a piece of content that generates a lead, how do you syndicate that content to as many platforms as possible so that you can put it in front of prospective buyers? But how do you do it with the least number of steps while you're getting all this other stuff set up? So I use their RSS feed, blog broadcasts, and created a template that started out with the mission statement. So I just noticed I have an error in it. Inside Strategic Relations helps high-income professionals transform business relationships into profit. Delivers insights that gain influence in competitive markets. You'll achieve more with fewer resources. And then immediately follow is the templated item, which is one broadcast post and then a link directly to it. And then I explain on the bottom here, many subscribers want immediate access to podcasts so that they can have the latest insights for building business relationships. This alert, so it's the use of language. What am I calling this? I'm calling it an alert. This alert provides access before show notes are complete. That's me setting expectations. These are unedited show descriptions direct from our publishing platform. Any feedback, questions, or comments you provide will inform additional materials once published. See, my problem is being turned into a solution through direct response. Now, I didn't write a full sales letter. I didn't have time for that. What I had time for is to automate something that already existed. Every time I create a podcast, there's an update to the RSS feed. That RSS feed is now going to broadcast to my subscribers, letting them know, hey folks, this is just published. This is brand new. This is the latest and greatest. Now, it still doesn't matter if my assistant comes back or an editor comes back and transcribes the audio and then takes the audio and turns it into 2 or 3 articles that then point to the show notes for the podcast. All that stuff hasn't happened yet. But for the people who have raised their hand, they're going to get something premium. They're going to get something up front. They're going to get something now rather than later. And that something establishes credibility, because the audio podcast is just fine. And I transcribed, as I talked about in my podcast development, I use voice recognition to write the description for the episode. And that's 4 paragraphs here. And it's encouraging them to listen to the episode. So what I want from this broadcast is I want to click, or I want to reply with questions. If I get a reply with questions, I can create another podcast, another audio podcast transcribed, turned into articles, turned into links, that kind of stuff. It creates more content. If every piece of content is designed to create a lead, that creates a lead that goes back on the list that gets see, we're creating a reoccurring cycle that builds on previous efforts. That's how we get from trading hours for dollars into kind of residual income. Now, I don't have every one of my podcasts turned into show notes. So I turned on the archive for Aweber to give me a archive to these broadcasts, which then the archive to the broadcast contains a link that goes back to the show and then has show notes. Now you might be saying, Justin, wait, why don't you just write the show notes, man? Why don't you just finish the job? Well, again, when you have more billable hours than time in a day, you got to be working on client work. I'm getting ready to go eat lunch. I'm waiting on the 122 Inside Strategic Relations podcast episodes to load. I would like to sit here and see that it goes okay. And while I'm doing it, I'm doing a quick podcast. See, I'm compressing time by accomplishing more in each hour. Now, when I work with clients, I focus on clients in specific markets, very specific markets, and I write to their needs, but my research tends to be cumulative. And I did a program a while back on research methods, but let me just say, if you're going to do research, go ahead and take notes, and you'll start developing binders that'll have like customer profiles. They'll have swipe copy, for example. And that becomes a problem because I got file cabinets like everywhere and binders everywhere. Yet when I get ready to engage an assignment, I can pull a binder down. If I'm writing for entrepreneurs and business owners, I can pull that binder down. I can look at their key challenges, their key frustrations, the results of campaigns and tests all across my client base, the materials that I might have purchased from other people that have examples, and then I put that binder back when I'm done. And then let's say I'm going to write a piece of copy for an affluent client. Now, an affluent client might be a salaried individual in a mid-level position who's a manager, has staff under them, but they also have executives over them. Their concerns about getting laid off, their concerns are tied to the company. And what we teach to them, because what they really desire, because 65% of them don't like their job, many of them want to be independently wealthy, which would be retire early type things. or they want to have a better lifestyle today because they're working themselves to death. Do you see how that works? I did the research already. I grab the binder off, and then as I work with client assignments, I learn more about their assignments. I fill it in. I put the binder back. Now, what I've done is the same concept with my podcasts. If I've got a topic of teaching that's relevant to my subscribers, that's you, and I can deliver in under 15 minutes, because I have a target here. I'm filling gap time. Under 15 minutes, I can answer the question. Now, you might be saying, Justin, I think you're mixing up two topics. You're talking about optimization of your billable time. You're claiming that you have 100% billable time. Yet you're telling me that in your free time, you'll do a podcast. Where do I get the questions? And this is how you close the loop. Where do I get the questions to answer in the podcast? Well, I get them from clients. So a client does a paid consultation. They have a few questions that are left over. I record a few podcasts that specifically speak to their questions. So the question I'm answering here is, as a copywriter, you're already busy. You're already busy chasing down assignments. You've got assignments. And now it just seems like a constant chase. How do you free up your time? My solution is to compress your time and use automation in order to accomplish more. Now, if you're accomplishing more, don't accomplish more writing content, because content alone does nothing for your business. It's lead generation that gives you an audience to have assignments, to have something to say, and then builds a cycle that builds your business. Now, again, if you've got questions about this, you send me in a question, and I try to give you a more specific answer tailored to your situation. And then I do it as a podcast. It gets recorded. It goes in the system, automatically goes out to my newsletter. So answering one question for one person actually answers it for many people. And if you've invested in a paid consultation, I actually got paid to answer your question, which I turned into a podcast, which I sends out automatically. Can you see how this builds up your funnel? Can you see how this builds up your book of information? Now, the most important part, and the reason I brought in the research, is because if I've solved the problem for a copywriter and another copywriter is hiring me to solve the same problem for them, I can go back to my reports, my materials, my podcasts that are relevant to that topic. If the individual decides to engage me beyond a paid consultation, then I can compile these materials and build a training course. I could compile these materials and present it as what I would provide in a service. But I got something useful. See, content broadcasted all over the damn internet doesn't do anything. There's volumes of content out there. You want to sift, sort, and collect a library or a mailing list of highly valuable prospects who you are engaging with on every interaction to fully understand their needs, desires, and what it is that they want. Now, you're going to get a giant list of what they want, and now all you got to do is match your service with what they want. And you start queuing them in the system. So I write some technical documents around process and business operations. I get engaged in the system in which they track their processes or their controls, and then I go in the system and find the items that need to be addressed with the technical writing element, the control and operational risk type of documentation that I do. On the copywriting side, I find that customers with campaigns, not people who want to just write a sales letter, but if you're going to write a sales letter, well, let's look at your lead flow. If you're going to write a lead generation piece, what are you offering them? If you have an offer, what have you tested? Can you see how this works? And now with this intimate relationship with your mailing list, you develop a client list. Now that client list, the same thing. You can farm the client list. One of the things that my Inside Strategic Relations newsletter subscribers wanted is to know about the podcast sooner. Now, of course, I could have said, just go to Apple iTunes and subscribe to the podcast. Go to Google Play and subscribe to the podcast. I think the podcast is on like 7 major platforms, even iHeartRadio. But again, I say, great. You've got a problem. I can help you solve that problem. Join my mailing list and I'll send you an alert when I post a new podcast. Don't worry, I'll do all the work for you. Now, again, if I didn't explain all this other stuff by the time we got here and I said, look, you got to do more work for your customers, and you said, well, I need more billable work, I don't need more stuff to do every day, I would understand that frustration. But again, I've developed a process for you through this conversation that sets you up to generate more leads, and through generating more leads, taking those materials that you use to generate the leads and packaging them in such a way to produce more clients. Now, yes, it's ideal from an engagement model that the prospect pays you to have a consultation, because what you know about copywriting and marketing and business development is important. You have intellectual property that is valuable. And the more you have on your free newsletter list or your alerts list or the postcard you're sending out once a week or the prospect newsletter, the more names you have on those lists, the easier it is to have paying customers. Now, what's interesting about this whole thing is if you don't have very many names on a list, and this is a topic we'll talk about at another time, you can rent lists, you can borrow lists, you can joint venture for lists, and now you have a system to put in front of prospects. See, a lot of you folks don't have any systems. You're out there tweeting and social media stuff. I stay off social media. I tried it for a year or two. It became a huge distraction. I wasn't getting paying clients from social media. So any social media I do now, I just will hire an agency to do it. I'll set up a thing to encourage you guys to post and retweet stuff. And then you'll do it for me rather than me do it. And then the clients, they can pay me to hire people to do it for them. I don't know if you're getting this, but it's very important that you get this because we're developing an ecosystem of outcomes. My podcast, delivered to qualified individuals, generates new clients. Usually the client comes in on an analyst type of service where I'm going to help them improve their operational efficiency. I'm going to help them improve their margins or the efficiency and effectiveness of their activity, which are not copywriting skills, by the way. Most of the people who are on this list are very good copywriters. Yet there's a segment that are brand new to copywriting who are often overwhelmed by all the stuff you've got to do. You know, if I handed you assignments, if you worked in my agency and I handed you assignments, there's enough work for that to be a full-time job. Or I just hand you an assignment, you write the assignment and go. But if you don't understand the value of the research, and you don't understand how we got the customer and the steps it took to understand the needs and desires of that customer, if you don't understand how we're cataloging and logging swipe campaigns, I got a copy of every campaign I've written for 20 years. And I've categorized them by what worked and what didn't, by what audience and what offers. So I've got newsletter offers, I've got product offers, informational materials, they're for fundraising, everything. That library, if you don't understand that needs to be there, you'll struggle. You'll approach every assignment as a new activity. You won't see that there are automations and tunings that if you set expectations that the customer will tolerate or the prospect will tolerate. And frankly, if you're not a client, you're going to get what I can give you. If you're a client, I will custom tailor my entire newsletter for you because I'm charging you enough that you're going to get what you want and I got what I want. So can you see how, first off, you're in the right place. Copywriting is a powerful way to create not only an intellectual property product, like an info product you can sell, but to create value in the marketplace that's highly sought after. Some of my clients have created hundreds of millions of dollars from materials that I've created. Now, again, just full disclosure, I didn't write sales letters to create that, and I wasn't the only person on the team. A lot of times what I worked on in the IT side was the lead generation mechanics. How do we automate more of the lead generation? How do we make sure people are getting packages and kits? How do we audit Salesforce or Infusionsoft or the different CRM platforms we're using? I supported other parts of this program and did copy reviews and research. But then when I did write copy for people as far as sales letters are concerned, hundreds of thousands of dollars over their previous numbers, that's value. You can do the same thing. But if you get bogged down in the day-to-day activities, if you get distracted, if you don't understand that it is a process and you want to be just creative, then you might be better off working for somebody else's agency. You might be better off narrowing the focus of the freelance work that you do, or hiring an assistant to take care of some things that were distractions so that you can get to the point of writing. But you wouldn't know that if you didn't think about why you're doing it. If you're writing content just to write content and not getting paid to write that content, then, what is that doing for you? Maybe that's why you're struggling. But again, if you look at the system I described here, now in every podcast I use what's called, I repeat myself, it's called alliteration. I say the same thing 2 or 3 different ways so that you can really get the concept. And so this is the takeaway. You've got to look at places where any interaction, any customer interaction point gets that other person to raise their hand. Direct response. It gets them to ask a question. It gets them to tell about their problems. It gets them to get additional information. It's direct response. You said something, they respond. Not everybody's going to respond, and not everybody's going to become a customer. So you need to have some way of reducing that upfront cost while maintaining effectiveness. When they click on the link in some of these alerts, I know people are clicking, and I can now segment my list. And those people who, maybe everybody in the last 30 days who clicked, I will send them an offer for a paid newsletter. I'll send them an offer for a consulting slot if it opens up. That's just my business. Your business might be different. You might be doing discovery calls. You might be selling packaged research. Hey, I noticed you are interested in marketing to the affluent. I've got this research kit I did for marketing to the affluent Christian families who are interested in guns. And now you've got not only a segment, but you can consult them on mailing lists to use. And so you summarized all the key mailing lists you work with. You summarized the key talking points, some fascinations and bullets that work. You package it up in an offer, and you sent it out because you're looking for more work in that area. Now, it doesn't matter to me what the category is. It could be, Mark. You have the attributes of a Marxist buyer of, hoodies. It doesn't matter what it is. You just package it up what you know. Offering it as part of your sales cycle to generate leads, and then often their investment in that program signifies their interest in additional work. Can you see where this comes from? Can you see how powerful this can be in automating your marketing? And can you see how much time you'll save by just simply writing the steps down on a piece of paper? And again, you can listen to this program. I gave it to you for 3 times. 3 times. And of course, if you don't understand it, there's paid consultations available. If you're a member of the coaching program, I can work with your particular platform. I'm using Aweber here, but I've used Infusionsoft and Constant Contact. There's 50,000 products. The key understanding here there's a systematic approach to get new clients. There's a systematic approach to serve those clients. And there's a systematic approach to keep and retain those clients. When you have those 3 things taken care of, which is prospect, present, and close, you ultimately can keep going back to your lists. Your lists and your customer relationship become the most valuable part of your business. You'll get to a point where you'll have nearly 100% billable, and then you'll start searching for ways to have residual income, to have royalties, to have licensing agreements and different types of things, which are all really useful copywriting models. But ultimately, you can also start monitoring the financials. Do you have free net cash flow? Are you able to do the things in life that attracted you to copywriting in the first place? And are you making best of your strengths? I'm Justin Hitt from Ad Briefing's Copywriting Tips. I'm here to help copywriters, marketers, and business development professionals elevate their career, produce greater outcomes, transform business relationships into profits. I hope you've taken away at least one thing that you can use that'll make a huge difference in what you do. And I would love to hear about that success that you have. If it's not a success and you have challenges, or you think I didn't cover it in the way that you needed it, then write my offices. Visit www.adbriefings.co.uk and just ask. I want you to be successful. I want you to achieve the outcomes that you desire. And I want you to do it in a way that's not going to kill you. Okay, because copywriting, marketing, that sales part that you're delivering to your clients is the most valuable part of their business. And sure, you can scam them on writing content and telling them how important content is. And if they got a lot of traffic on a website, maybe content can help you test offers or generate leads and stuff. But ultimately, folks, if you don't understand the underlying system, they aren't going to get the results that they deserve. You aren't going to get the results that you deserve. And you're going to be frustrated. So don't be frustrated. You can reply to any of my emails. You can go visit www.adbriefings.co.uk and send in your questions. You can become a coaching client. The results are there, especially now that inflation is kicking up. But again, you can't burn out chasing everything. Let's focus. Let's create purposeful materials. Let's benefit from automation. And I know this has been a long podcast, but I really want you to be able to go to that next level. Again, thanks for listening. I'm Justin Hitt from Ad Briefings Copywriting Tips, where we do teach about the business of copywriting. And we do have programs available, very affordable and very often free, that help you get started in copywriting. Because copywriting and marketing is a power-producing position for your clients and is always in demand in the marketplace. Thanks for listening.